and welcome to G Talks, where we connect with voices that inspire, challenge, and transform. I'm your host, Isha Ali, and I'm very pleased to have with us today Ms. Mariam Sumro, who's a proud Greenwich alumni and has a decades of experience in banking industry. And now she's a wealth and wellness coach who's helping people find calm and confidence in this chaos. Thank you for joining us here today, Mariam.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here. I'm a very proud Greenwich alumni. You got that right.
Yeah. So, how does it feel to be back after so long?
Also nostalgic. So, when I was walking in, I parked my car. I was picking up on small changes as to how the buildings had changed, how the spaces, so the physical spaces were the same, but obviously, I think maybe the decor or bits and pieces had moved. It was nice to be greeted by a guard who recognized me. It also made me realize how old we both have become since then. So it felt good.
Yeah.
Felt good to
And
be back.
how was your time at Greenwich when you were here? Your time spent with your friends and the experience you had with the faculty and management at that time?
So I think if I look back at the time that I had at Greenwich, it was definitely one of the best times that I would say there is to be said to be had in my life. I came to Greenwich fresh out of A levels. I did not imagine it would play the kind of kind of building or transformative role that it did, and it really, when people say your college days or your university days are the best, that is what Greenwich was. I made friends which are still with me. Everything I learned, it started happening here. There were teachers who have mentored us and continue to stay in touch with us from then, and I don't want to say the year, but it was very long ago till now. so yes, only good things and only good memories.
Yeah, that's wonderful to hear. And in my introduction of this episode, I talked about your decades of experience in banking industry. But after that, before we dive into that, by the end of that banking industry's experience, there was this ordinary Wednesday that you talk about on your social media and on different platforms. So walk us through that. What is that ordinary Wednesday?
So it was an ordinary Wednesday, just like any other Wednesday. In fact, I'm reminded by the fact that it's Wednesday today.
Today as
So
well.
it's kind of ironic. So I had been a banker for all my life, so over 2 decades of banking and financial institutional experience, where I dabbled in a number of areas, and I received a meeting request on a Wednesday morning, and it just said catch up. And I was like, okay, you have catch ups. And I worked in a remote role. My supervisor was in the Far East, and it was quite normal to have these kind of, emails drop in. However, how that Wednesday unfolded was totally different from how I would have imagined it. I received a redundancy information kehenge. I don't know what you would say, but I was told I was being made redundant in that call. And it was a very scripted and a very short timed call, as all such announcements usually are. There was an HR person, there was a supervisor, went by very fast. I don't remember the wordings. I just remember how I felt. And I felt like literally, everything just fell away. It transformed my life in ways I really had not ever imagined. And one of the things I remember, from that Wednesday, and I speak about this in depth on my Instagram page, and you can go have a look at it later, is that I had I had two thoughts when I heard about that redundancy. My first and foremost thought was, oh my God, what will I do now? And my second thought for that day was, I was hosting this big get together of little 5-year-old children. And I was like, do I still have to go through with that? And I went through with that. It was probably the toughest.
You had to put the happy face on.
Yeah, happy face on. And they were friends. And in retrospect, I wonder how they would feel if I had told them what was happening. But it was a Wednesday that turned out to be not so ordinary.
And that Wednesday led you to another dimension in your life, that is wealth and wellness coaching. Please help us understand what that is and how does that work?
So let me just maybe take you through a little bit of that journey. So that ordinary Wednesday was in It was in 23. So it was in the fall of 2023 that I received a redundancy notice. When I received this, I was fortunate enough to also have a choice. I could choose to walk out of the bank, or I could choose to find another role. My mind was obviously thrown into turmoil, and I went through great stress. But at the same time, like, I don't know if you've ever experienced it, there is always a clarity at the back of your head. So whilst I was feeling stressed, and I cried a lot, and I went through a very emotional kind of upheaval related week where I was trying to share the news with people, but also guard the news from other people. I was clear on one thing, that I would not look for another role, and I would walk out of the bank. And over the period that the bank offered me, I was quite clear. As days and time progressed, I became clearer on this intention that I would not stay and I would walk out. Maybe it was, some people thought it was a very foolish choice to leave a reputable organization which was giving me a caveat and saying, hey, look, you can stay on, but you can find something else. And I was saying, no, I'm going to leave. It was not out of ego. I think for me, it was from the fact that I had been in this institution for over a decade. I had done a role, I had played a really good innings, achieved what I wanted to achieve, and I'd been feeling for the past couple of months of my tenure at that space that I had maybe settled into a comfort zone and I needed to challenge myself. Um, I'm not a very religious person, but I am a spiritual person. And I also felt कि when something like this comes to you, तो उसके अंदर हमेशा खैर होती है. And when God gives you something, He also gives you the strength and the wherewithal to overcome it. So now I'm going to compress this whole story because we don't want a TED talk
I'm
happening
sure a
here.
lot of people can resonate with the feelings and the circumstances that you have explained. Anyone who has been through a similar experience, they can resonate with that.
It was very scary, right? Because you go from being a senior player in a multinational organization to be told that your services are no longer required. And it was not a performance based redundancy. It was a redundancy that was born out of an reorg. And I found it unexpected because I had been talking about this reorg to my partners, to stakeholders. And obviously, you know how the way these things fold out in the corporate world, sometimes you don't really know who the affected people are till the nth minute. And I was one of those few people who was affected. My role just fell off. It did not exist in the bank any longer. So it was not driven out of personal enmity. It was not driven out of poor performance. I closed what I was working on with a bang, achieved all my targets, but it was time for me to go. And it was a lot of fear. It was a lot of resentment, a lot of anger. So it was different feelings at different days. So, and then one day you would get me and I'd be like, Ani Allah Malik hai, I'll do something. And then one day you'd find me saying, I don't feel like talking today. So it was a lot of emotions, and those emotions played out over the next couple of months, I'd say. And I went through quite a few definitive, I'd say, states. So I think my when the initial shock wore off, I went into a state of gratitude. I looked at my settlement. I settled my mortgages. I settled my outstanding debts. I went for a spiritual kind of trip to Umrah. I took my child. I kind of prayed to God, and I said, show me what I have to do next. And this is the tricky part, and I think this is something that I feel people can learn from, right? I think I was like a horse with blinders on, right? So I'm in this state, and I don't know if your camera is picking up, and it makes me emotional even talking about it. And I did what I thought was a natural thing. I interviewed. So I took out my CV, I spruced it up, and I started talking to people. And everyone I spoke to told me, don't worry, you'll get something. You're so good. You'll get something. Well, guess what? About 6 months, 7 months, 8 months passed. My gardening leave ended, and there was no conversation which was leading to anything. And I was starting to get a bit anxious because you go through those different states that I mentioned, and I did what I wanted to. I took the extravagant holiday. I did the impulse buying, shopping kind of splurges to satisfy myself.
Everything you needed to
Everything.
cope up with that situation.
Cope up, right?
Yeah.
And then I even ran a marathon. And when I opted to run that marathon, my friends who are runners of many years said, "You're mad. You can't just wake up one day and say you'll run a marathon." And I'm like, "Well, guess what? I will run a marathon." And I actually ran that marathon. It was not a full marathon. I ran a 10K, and I ran it with just under 2 months of prep, right? And that to me demonstrated that it is mind over matter. And then having run that marathon, I started doing these interviews and whatever, and then nothing was coming out of it. And then I kind of took a step back, and I'm like, okay, what is this saying to me? And I think one of my biggest strengths, even in having worked in a corporate environment, is that I work very well with ambiguity. There are people that shy away and they prefer the routine and the structure. So yes, I preferred the structure of being employed by a large organization, receiving a nice, package of money at the end of the month. But I also work well with ambiguity and stress. And I thought, I'm like, so what is this telling me, and what do I need to do? Because I'm meeting all these people, and I'm fortunate enough to have friends in high places. I've worked in banking all my life. I went in, I did what I thought were great interviews, but they all came back saying, "Mariam, we don't have something for you at your level at this point in time. Hang on." And then, जब 6 महीने गुजर गए, 7 महीने गुजर गए, and I even if you ask me today, who all did you talk to? That list is really long. They didn't have a job for me. And then I one of my kind of primary kind of trainings as a coach kicked in, and I said, I have to reframe this situation. So what can I do? And I think in that is something that I feel has always helped me, which is that, we are not in charge of what is happening to us. I was not in charge of losing my job, but what I was in charge of was how I dealt with the aftermath. And the aftermath, like I said, the natural kind of expected reaction was, okay, get back into corporate, look at the local banks, look at other organizations, look at who's doing D&I work or diversity work, talk to them, talk to nonprofits. Everyone was very receptive, but there was no job. And then out of that, I realized that maybe I need to pick up a skill set which I have, but I have not exercised commercially. During COVID, a lot of people upskill themselves. I don't know how you spent COVID. I spent most of it in a virtual classroom, and I had received some coaching, executive coaching at the bank as a high performer, and I was so impressed by that coaching journey that I thought, "Ki ye to bahut achhi cheez hai. I should be a coach." And I trained as a coach, and in addition to my day job, I was coaching people within the bank, and it was a passion for me. I enjoyed helping nudge people towards their kind of potential that they could achieve. And I said, and obviously because I'd been working at the bank, it was not something I had done commercially. I had not ever gotten clients or solicited business on my own. And I had also worked with people outside of Pakistan. So I was a little unsure of, is this going to work or not? And I said, well, what's the harm in trying? I don't have a job. 6-7 महीने तो गुजर गए, अब पैसे भी कुछ कम होते जा रहे हैं, and I need to do something. And so I turned to this. I did not make anything, and I did not advertise. I did not put any money behind it. I put a very I would say very kind of humbly drafted message together, and I sent it around a few school groups. I have a child who goes to school, and so I sent it in your mother's groups, and I said, this is what I've done, and I'm here if you would like to get a coaching session. And I was quite surprised and pleasantly surprised to receive a few clients out of that simple WhatsApp message. And then that led to me thinking more. And
prior to that, you weren't doing it commercially. You were just
no, I was not doing it commercially at all. I'd been coaching for a long time at the bank, and I'm an ICF coach. ICF is the International Coaching Federation. It's a more academic, rigorous form of accreditation. People in Asia, South Asia in particular, usually go the NLP way, the Neuro Linguistic Programming coaches, and that's for a number of reasons. I received the ICF training because I was at a bank. It had to be something more academic and more regulated. And so when I came into coaching here, people asked, are you an NLP coach? No, I'm not.
Mm.
I'm an ICF coach. So really, I'm not interested if you do something. I'm not interested, or I'm not going to help you explore why you did it.
Mm.
The only thing I'm interested in is, okay, this has happened. Where do we want to go?
Mm.
And I will work to find a solution. And ICF coaches are trained. So by virtue of practice, I'm a life coach and an
Uh-huh.
executive coach.
Okay.
So I thought, well, I've kind of lost my chain of thought a bit, but yeah, that's how I landed up. But I had not done
Before
commercial.
we dig deeper into how this wealth and wellness coaching actually
Hmm.
work, how do you help your clients do that? I think one very important thing that you have shared is going through all these phases, whether it was shock, whether how you process
Depression.
this. Yeah, for some people it's denial, for some people it's depression, for some people it's coping up mechanism, like maybe a spiritual journey, maybe shopping. But I feel going through all these phases are very, very important so that you're able to process what you have felt. And feeling all those feelings is also very important instead of just suppressing them.
Yes.
Because then later on, if you suppress them, you don't know how will they come out later on when the time has passed. But like you said, it's destiny, or maybe how it was written. Whenever, like they say, whenever one door closes, so many other avenues open up. And I think one decision leads to another, and this
One
decision led you
decision-
to
Absolutely. One
Yeah.
decision leads to another one. And I think that is the key, right, to moving forward. That if we keep banging on the door that has shut, which for me was the financial institution door, I met every bank you can name. I knew the HR heads. I knew a lot of CEOs. I had good standing with them, but they
Mm.
had no job for me.
Yeah.
And I kept knocking those doors, and I kept going in. I'd psych myself up. I'd tailor my CV to the role that I felt that they might have for me, but the door just wouldn't open. And the door,
Sometimes it's not just the right, it's the timing, it's just not the
it's not the right, it was
Yeah.
not the right time for me, and it was not the right thing for me. And then when I picked up this coaching thing and I got that initial positive response, it made me pause, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe I should look at this. And I was very lucky. I had a very supportive spouse who said that, why don't you do this if
Mhm.
people are willing to be coached by you? And so I started down that journey. And I have an Instagram page now. I'm fairly active on it.
Mhm.
But when I started that page up, right, you'd see it. If you visit my handle, it's Mariam the coach. You'd see that initially the posts are very far and few, and you don't really see me. It's images or static posts. And then I transitioned to talking, and then some of my most popular, kind of, or most liked or viral, I don't think any of them can be defined as viral, but the posts that resonated most with people were where I put myself on screen and I spoke.
Yeah.
I spoke about a bad run I had. I spoke about a bad parenting day. And then I started putting the pieces of the puzzle together, right? And so it's reflection and then action based on that reflection. I saw that what I'm saying, and initially I was conscious, right? I'm like, who wants to see me sitting sweaty in Zamzama Park talking about, oh my God, how bad was this run? And, in my 40s, I've decided to become a runner. Is it really good for my knees? Am I really a runner? But yes, I am a runner. And people do want to hear what I'm doing or what I'm struggling with. And then I realized that there are people that share similar emotions or similar situations or can relate to these kind of challenges. And so I started becoming more and more active and putting myself as often as I can on in front of the camera. And then out of that was born this baby, which I called the Mindful Collective. And I don't know how.
So I'll quickly ask you to walk us through, give us a crux of how this wealth and wellness coaching works. If somebody wants to approach you or any other coach, what is that they should expect? But like you said, before I get on to that, like before you said that when you had put your heart out there, that's when people really resonated with that. And I feel with social media especially, the more authentic, the more genuine your voice is, if it comes straight from your heart, what you truly feel,
Yes.
it really connects. It really helps you connect with people, and people really resonate with that. Because I think in today's world, what really matters is the authenticity of the opinion and where you're coming from. Because वो orchestrated and calculated opinions तो हमने बहुत देखे हैं. But something, a human voice coming straight from the heart, where people can actually connect, that's what really matters.
Yes, and it's when you share what you're struggling with, because those struggles are not just yours. And that's what I've learned in this journey of redundancy, and then back to kind of, this re-emergence, as I call it, in a new self. I now I held a first, I've had one or two smaller workshops, but I had a first public workshop in Karachi last week, and there were a few people in the room that I knew, and I said, let me reintroduce myself, because guess what, I went through that and I kind of reinvented myself. And it's a new person, and that person is still me. It's still me with all the banking experience and stuff, but it's me now deciding to use my knowledge and my experience in a different way. In the last couple of years that I spent at where I was working, I had been focusing a lot on women and young girls' development. And then before that, like I said, I've got about 2 decades of financial institutional experience. So, and I'm also a coach. And I kept thinking, right? And I explained, and we're in Pakistan and we have families. And I spoke, and I had a couple of senior family members, a few of my chachas, who kind of had these conversations on, "Acha beta, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
And then when I came up with this idea and I shared this concept, and they were very skeptical, and they were like, "Acha, ye to tum karte rehna, but what about work?" And
Steady income source hona
steady
chahiye,
income.
yeah.
This
Something
is,
more
I mean, they
dependable.
didn't get it, right?
Yeah.
Nobody really got what I was trying to do, and I am very clear in what I want to do. And so the work that I'm doing, I've kind of clubbed 2 very distinct streams of work together. I've called it the Mindful Collective, because I think where the name obviously has connotations, as does the logo of where I want us to be. And my 2 distinct streams of work are, one is the coaching stream, where I coach people in a curated experience of 2.5 hours, and I bring together groups of people. They don't need to be gender segregated. Women seem to be gravitating more towards it, but it's okay. I can coach men or women. And then we have kind of like very intimate discussions on topics which are relevant to us. I spoke last week about cultivating calm. Now, everyone has triggers, how to know your triggers, identify those triggers, and then to manage them.
Okay.
Then so the workshop piece is something that is going to be recurrent.
I think it's more public in nature, where people can interact with you.
Yeah,
and
it's interact, and also
So if Mariam, if I have to approach you for coaching, quickly tell me, what should I expect from that?
I think what you would expect depends on what you're looking for. So if you are looking for something at an affordable price tag, then you need to be at a workshop, which is obviously priced. It's the cost is insignificant, and it's done deliberately. So I'm not making a money. I'm not here to profit from those workshops. I'm here because I want to share my coaching and coping tools with people while I talk about topics that are for everyone. If you have the wherewithal and the budget to take on a private session, I'm happy to help, discuss individually and coach you along, a timeline or whatever it is on an individual issue.
Okay.
And then the other kind of stream of work, and I'll quickly explain it, is that, because I'm a banker, right? And I feel that in Pakistan, there's an emerging stream of people who are coming into white collar work for the first time. So people whose families have not held white collar jobs, and they're coming into this space. And so now they don't have they have money and they have wealth, but they don't have agency. And then there's another group of people who are affluent and have money, but don't know how to use that money. And I know that there's a couple of Pakistanis out there who talk about crypto and stuff, but crypto is really it's really a game for the rich. It's not what the common person needs. And I've been a banker and I have banking knowledge to share. So I want to put that knowledge together, and I've built up an inventory of videos, and I want to be launching a YouTube on finance and financial inclusion. Because I really think, when you go into a bank, and when my mother goes into a bank, she'll sometimes call me and says, "Ki wo mujhe ye keh raha hai, ab main kya karu?" The thing is, you shouldn't have to call someone. You should be able to know. So I'm
whether it's women or any even marginalized groups, when it comes to empowerment, financial empowerment and financial literacy is very, very important. And I think we have touched upon some very important points that we should discuss in future, how to empower women through financial literacy as well. But so now we move on towards wrapping up our session. Even though I'm enjoying the conversation and the experience,
we can always have another discussion.
Very much. There's a quick fire up that
Okay.
we'll do towards the end. Quick question. You have talked about your life, and I'm sure you have been through many phases, and many things have helped you through those phases as well. But name one book that has changed your perspective towards life.
It's a 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma. It has changed my life. I read it in my coaching school. It's a hard book to read.
Yeah.
If you can't read the full one, read it on Blinkist or something. But it talks to you about how having an early morning routine can transform your day.
That brings to my next question. Tell me about the daily rituals that you can't live without.
I have 2 daily rituals which I will not compromise for anyone. One is early morning. So a lot of people think I'm mad. I've been waking up at 4:30 since a few years now. I'm not asking everyone to wake up at 4:30. Some people are not morning people, like my husband. You wake him up at 4:30, you'll have a monster on your hand, and there's not going to be any productivity coming out of that. But have a morning routine. So I think even if you wake up 5 minutes, 10 minutes before the rest of your household, and you just have 5-10 minutes to think of just doing two simple things. What is the one important task that I want to achieve today?
Yeah.
And maybe what is one thing that went well yesterday.
Yes.
So I think if you do a combination of gratitude and reflection looking forward, it will help.
It will help. Since you're Greenwich alumni, so I have to ask you this one. Any favorite memory from your time at Greenwich that you would like to share?
There are too many favorite memories.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time here. It's a lot of things done and experienced here. But I think one of my most favorite memories is of the convocation, which was I think we were the first batch to have a convocation on campus.
Oh.
So it was something very special, and I still remember sitting on that stage, and I remember the valedictorian.
Yeah.
It was a
So
good
Greenwich
day.
convocations are special. They're a big deal for us.
Yes.
So the last one, one word to describe your current season of life.
I think it's rebirth.
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 Yeah, that sure is. I think that beautifully summarizes your whole journey that you have shared with us today. And thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your journey with us. And I am sure that a lot of our listeners, a lot of students will get to learn a lot from that. So we had with us today Miss Mariam, who is a wealth and wellness coach. We learned about how to process your traumas and how to process your journey and figure out that if one door closes, so many other avenues open up. There's a lot more to learn from our proud alumni, Miss Mariam, whether it's the financial empowerment or financial literacy for the women. And looking forward to much more conversations with you, Mariam, and with our other alumni as well. Thank you for joining us today.